All right, as we get ready for the opening ceremony a little later today, Olympians in Paris are not only preparing for the Games, they're also getting ready for increased media attention. For a lot of athletes, the Olympics is their largest stage yet, but with it comes increased pressure and demands. So how do they navigate this career-defining moment? And what support do these athletes have to help them through it? Well, joining us to discuss all this is Karine Delage. She is the CEO and president of the Karine Agency and a publicist for Olympians. Hey, thanks for joining us this morning.
Thanks, Anne-Marie, for having me.
Listen, I know you were watching this press conference along with us, so I want to start there. When a story like this breaks, it happens, and you've got young athletes or new athletes on this team. How do they handle the pressure of something, of a big international story like this?
Yeah, it's easy to get wrapped in the whole, it's the Olympic, it's big, you're representing your country, and you need to take it down a notch. And that's why it's always important for people like me to be supporting the athletes, to talk to them, to make sure that they know that distraction needs to be shut off at least 2 days prior to their event at the Olympics. Some tips and tricks on how to help them on a mental standpoint. And also, they do have someone from the federation that will be there coaching them through it.
In a situation like this, our athletes just played the game, or our Canadian women's soccer athletes just played the game yesterday, and of course there's going to be media attention. They won that game. They've got another game coming Sunday. What would you advise them? Because they are going to have to speak to the media. They are the gold medal defending champions, and they are going to need to speak to media after the game, in particular, the host broadcasters. So what would you advise them in a situation like this?
I personally would say to keep your answer short, not to join your emotion to your answer, to keep it professional as much as possible, and just to talk about the game you just played and or you're about to play.
It's not all scandals, we're happy to say. Typically, when we're talking about Olympic Games, we're talking about moments that are celebrated. How do you make sure that athletes leverage these moments, this kind of attention and spotlight for their futures?
See, for athletes, this is really important to get their story out, to get their own personality out, because at the end of the day, these people are going to look into getting some new brand deals after the Olympics, getting, depending on where they are in their career, maybe it's for their upcoming job outside being an athlete. So whoever they are, their personal brand is really, really important to be shown throughout the Olympics and even before and after.
The comparison is often made to the United States. We know U.S. athletes often receive support from agencies as early as their college days. So how do the support structures compare to our neighbors to the south?
Sometimes I think not just me, but athletes in general wish there was a little bit more support, because these people work so hard to get to where they are today, especially today because it's the opening ceremony. But except that, sometimes we forget how they are role models to kids. And compared to the US, the NCAA, for example, have a possibility, and they pinpoint the athletes to see, oh, this person has opportunities. Let's start to work with them on brand deals and show their stories. So I feel like sometimes Canada forget how it's important for our athletes to be shown and see their story, even if at a younger age.
Speaking of a younger age, one example of an athlete who the entire country has grown up watching is Penny Oleksiak. I remember when she first came on the scene, she was a teenager. She was so young, but such a strong Olympian, such a strong showing in the pool. And I remember watching her or interviewing her in her first ones, and it was difficult for her. And she told the story about how she'd always been told to not sort of put her personality forward, but to save everything for the pool. But we've seen her transform. We interviewed her just before she left for the Games. She's so natural. She's so comfortable. Tell us about the journey for an athlete from that area of being maybe uncomfortable of sharing themselves outside of their sport to becoming more media friendly.
I feel like, again, it goes back to the team you have around you. The more you get prep, I'm not saying to say particular answer as cookie cutter. This is not at all, what I want for my athletes, what I want to see. I want to see their real story. I want to see who they are. And I feel like sometimes this is what people are lacking, in the sense of playing, expressing themselves. But with a little bit of practice, with a little bit of knowledge, and to know that it's so important for people to know the athletes behind. Like, it's not just in the pool, but there's so much prep around the pool. For example, for Penny, it's really important. And I think that the more she's grown, the more she's seen it.
Karine, I want to thank you for joining us this morning. Very timely to have you on right out of the press conference from Canada
Well,
Soccer.
thank you. I know.
Thank you.
Have a great Olympic Games.
Thank you. You too. Speaking of Olympic Games, sidebar.